Hello everybody, my name's Nicola and welcome back to my channel. This is the Frugal Cottage, where we talk all things money to help you on your financial journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started. So today's video is all about the mistakes that an investor might make at the beginning of their journey. And I'm going through these in the hopes that I help you to not make these, so that you get building your wealth sooner rather than later. So number one, and it does link to investing but it might seem a bit random, is that you do not have an emergency fund in place. Now, investing should be seen as a long-term thing. It should be at least 10 years plus that you are putting your money away for, just to ride those ups and downs of the market. It is not money that is easily accessible. So before you start investing, one of the main things you need to make sure that you have in place is an emergency fund. Now, the general rule of thumb is to have between 3 and 6 months expenses saved in an easy access account. Obviously, your number for that will be different depending on your circumstances, so you will need to sit and work out what 1 month's expenses is for you. So fix expenses, variable expenses, work out a total, then work out how much that would be. That number might be quite scary, and it might be possible to do this in line with investing, but you do need some kind of emergency fund in place before you start your investing journey, so that if anything happens, you have some cash easily accessible for you in a time of need. The second one is not investing at all. The world of investing and the stock market and all of the different terms and things that you can invest in might seem incredibly scary. But the biggest mistake that you can make when thinking about your investment journey is to not invest at all. One of the things I talk about when I talk about my own investment journey is the fact that I wish I'd started sooner, and I hadn't kind of ummed and ahed about it and put it off because it seemed a bit scary and a bit risky. And if you don't invest at all, you'll never kind of get to learn what it all is all about and make those gains and build that wealth. So the second thing is to not invest at all, is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. The third one is to invest too much money in one go. The reasoning behind this is the fact that the markets go up and down, so the cost of a share goes up and down as well. If you put all your money in one go, and then it goes down by 50%, you've lost 50% of your initial investment as you look at it. If you stagger the amount of money that you put in, so you put in a certain amount one month and then put in a certain amount the next month, you are less likely to have such big losses or gains, because you are averaging that price out by staggering it over time. Remember, there is always a risk that your money can go down, that your capital is at risk when you invest. But if you invest for the long term and don't put it all in at one go, then you are trying to minimise that risk. I should say a disclaimer here that everything I say is taken as a token gesture. You need to do your own research when looking at investing, but these are just some of the things to try and avoid along your journey. But you need to do your own research and reading around investments before you look at doing that. The next one, and this links I suppose into the never investing, but number 4 is waiting too long to start. There is never going to be the perfect time to start investing. The timing in the market versus time in the market is a saying. You can't time when the perfect point is to enter the market, i.e. when you to start investing. You are better off jumping in and riding out whatever the storm is than waiting for that perfect time, because let me tell you, the perfect time to start investing does not exist, and if it did, nobody would share that with you anyway, because they want to get rich. You just need to be in there with whatever investments you have, rather than waiting for that seemingly perfect moment to then invest. There isn't that as such. Waiting too long also means that you might miss out on some share growth, as in the price might rise. You also might miss out on dividend income if you choose dividend paying stocks, or you miss out on the accumulation of funds if you choose that method. Waiting too long is one of the biggest mistakes most people make when investing. Yes, you might make some mistakes when you start out, but you will quickly learn along the way, especially when it comes to your own money. So waiting too long really can damage in terms of your long-term portfolio. So if you're umming and ahhing about it, just jump straight in once you've done your research. Number 5 is not choosing the right account to have your portfolio in. So in the UK there are 3 different accounts. You need to pick the right one which is for you. I've got a video coming up about this soon. Generally, most people should have their portfolio within what is called the Stocks and Shares ISA. That is a tax-free wrapper that every single adult can have in the UK, and at the current time you can put £20,000 in there every year and you do not pay tax on your dividends or your capital gains, which is the money you make from investments. There is also a self-invested pension and a general fund and share account. But the biggest mistake people tend to make is they don't choose the right account for them. Most people would be better off with the stocks and shares account. If you don't have a pension, you might want to look at the self-invested pension, the fund and shares account. So the stocks and shares ISAs first, then the self-invested pension, or SIP as it's known. The fund and share account, or the general investing account, is the one that is probably going to be the most expensive, but you also pay tax on everything within it. So one of the biggest mistakes is not choosing the right account for you. Again, do your research. If you already have an ISA open during this tax year, you would need to transfer that into a stocks and shares ISA. You can't have more than one in the same tax year, but have a look around the different accounts. It is important that you choose the right account. Number 6 is to not monitor the fees associated with investing. So when you're investing either in the stock market or in funds, there are fees involved. Of course there are. So if you buy individual shares in a individual company, there is often a one-off charge to make that purchase. You then have stamp duty, which is a kind of tax, I suppose. And then there is an ongoing charge to have your account. Different platforms have different types of fees in terms of the amount. You need to be careful about what your fees are and monitor that, so see how they go over time. Funds are slightly different, so there's no fee for purchasing a fund, but they have an ongoing percentage fee, and some of them are much higher than others. Some of the ones that are recommended by fund managers often have really high fees involved, because essentially those fund managers are being paid by the fees from their fund. So just be careful about fees in funds, but fees overall in your investing journey, that over time can kind of eat into your profits. There are certain platforms that are more expensive, there are certain individual companies that are cheaper. Just have a research about the different fees involved when you are having your investments, and watch out for the apps that you can get as well. Some of those have like a monthly fee and then an ongoing fee and then fees for other things, so just be careful with apps. But definitely check the fees for your investments. And number 7, and perhaps this is one that you need to think about before you even start investing, and that is not being honest about the amount of risk that you need to take. So investing is a risk. It is, no one can predict what the markets will do over time. Historically, they have always gone up over time. Remember, we're talking about years, not months. But over time they do go up, but that is not to say that they will in the future. So past performance does not predict that it's going to continue in that way. So you do need to think about the risk. But history shows that, you know, over time, the risk is, the longer you can be in the stock market, the risk should be lowered. But you also need to think about your own individual risk, as in when I mentioned before about if it dropped 50%, how would you feel about that? Funds are much less risky than individual companies, because funds are a mixture of companies. Individual companies is just the one. So there's much a higher risk of one company going under as opposed to a fund. And if something happened to a company within a fund like that, they probably just kind of ship it out and bring in another company to replace that, so that that fund stays stable and you don't have to do anything about that. So funds are a lot less risky than individual companies, but you need to be honest about the amount of risk. The longer you have to invest for, so say you've got maybe 30-40 years that you can invest for, your risk could be slightly higher because you've got that amount of time to invest for. So just think about your kind of appetite for risk, in that the older you get, the less risky your portfolio should be over time, especially if you're relying on that for, say, supplementing your retirement or you're saving for something really big in 20 years time, you need to minimise the potential losses should there be any. So there you have it. There are my 7 top beginner investing mistakes that people make, and I will be totally honest, I've also made them, which is why I feel comfortable talking about this. So when I first started investing, we didn't have an emergency fund to speak of, not really. We are working on building ours. Even now when we're regularly investing, we are still working on building our emergency fund on the side. I also made some really quite daft purchases when I first started investing, but that taught me a lot about the world of investing and also about the fees involved when investing. So all these things have kind of come from my personal experience, as well as looking at forums and reading through books and things about investing. There are lots of things you can avoid, especially when you're starting out on your investing journey. I'll leave a link below. I've got some videos on investing already, and I have a lot of blog posts about investing. I'll also leave links to a couple of investing books that I think might be good for people to read. If you are interested in getting into investing, I recommend you do research. Go in with some kind of strategy, but don't leave it for too long. And let's start building your wealth. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave any comments down below about investing. Have you made these mistakes as well? Do you think that it's something that people should be more aware of? Let me know, and I'll see you again very soon.